Hola, buenas tardes. Gracias por venir a todos otra vez más. Hoy os presentamos un BAU Talks que hacemos en colaboración con el meu primer festival. Es el cuarto o el quinto año que hacemos esta colaboración y es bastante interesante porque durante los últimos años hemos conseguido, gracias a esta colaboración, traer a gente de diferentes países, de Inglaterra, de Francia, de Irán el año pasado, de Noruega. Entonces, bueno, este año repetimos Noruega con Rasmus. Rasmus es director y animador de cine que inaugurará mañana el festival, el meu primer festival, con el estreno de su película Solan y Eri Misión a la Luna. Mañana a las 11:30 en los cines Bosque, por si queréis acercaros. Él debutó en el 2008 con su primera película y con esta primera película ganó el premio Amanda, que el premio Amanda es el equivalente a los Goya en Noruega, ¿vale? Y era su primera película, con lo cual pues está muy bien, ¿vale? La primera película infantil, además. Rasmus es copropietario de Qvisten Animation, que es lo que veis aquí detrás, y está considerado uno de los directores más productivos en Noruega, donde ha dirigido ya 9 largometrajes, 3 series de televisión y un cortometraje. Sus producciones también incluyen proyectos 2D y 3D, en los que está inmerso ahora, y ahora mismo está en la producción de su última película, su 10ª película, que es Hell Super, que se estrenará en otoño del año que viene. Pues creo que con esto más o menos ya está, para situaros un poco en el contexto. Y nada, solo anunciaros también que el mes que viene tendremos a César Díaz, de un animador stop motion también reconocido internacionalmente, y que estará aquí con nosotros el 12 de diciembre, si no me equivoco, ¿vale? Que es un jueves. O sea que bueno, ya lo iréis viendo en las redes. Nada más, os dejo con Rasmus.
Thank you very much. My name is Rasmus, and I'm from Qvisten Animation in Norway. Qvisten Animation is an animation company based in Oslo, Norway. It's 25 years this year since we started. We started 3 people with just a love of animation. All kinds of animation, doing 2D animation, CGI, stop motion. But the core has always been, the technique and the love of animation first. We started just doing commercials, short films, music videos, whatever you do in the beginning when you start your career. And after a while, we were invited to do co-productions with other companies, feature films where we had little parts in the films. And after a while, we wanted to see if we could be producers ourselves. So we started to buy IPs, books, rights, and produce our own films. So that's the last 5 years we've been also producing our own material. I'll be talking today about our last stop motion film. I will be talking about that, but also about the whole trilogy and stop motion in general for us. First, I'd like to maybe show a little showreel, short 1.5 minute of our latest work, so you can see our styles. I've been directing 10 feature films in the last years. in all techniques, one 2D animation, and then 5 CGI, computer animated films, and 4 stop motion films. I come from 2D animation myself. My father was a 2D animator. He, in the 70s and 80s, he was doing short films. He was originally a teacher, but he applied for funding, and sometimes he got funding, and then he put his teacher career at the hold, and he maybe worked for a couple of years doing short films in the our living room, sitting there flipping drawings, and of course me and my brother were very inspired and started to animate for him and by ourselves, and so that's how kind of my fascination for this for animation started. But over the years, I learned to love the kind of the whole field of animation. I think every technique is nice in its own way. We always choose technique after what kind of film we're going to make. It's not technique first. It's kind of, does the technique fit the story? So when we're doing now our latest film, the Sabertooth, the pirate film there, which is going to be a big spectacle with water and pirate fights and a lot of characters, it was natural to do a CGI movie. But when we were doing this Hucky Bucky Forest, for example, which had a lot of nostalgia and charm, we chose stop motion as the technique. All the films are made in Norway, in our studio. They're also financed in Norway. It's based around financing them in our country and made for the Norwegian audience first. That's how we can do this. Many films in such a short time. It's because it's not very high budgets on these films. It's around 2.5, 3, 4 million euros maximum on these films. And that kind of money is possible to finance in our country. We can get 4 million euros, get people to invest with funding. And if we were to do bigger budgets, we had to go outside, do co-productions, which is of course also interesting, but it would be much longer processes. And we are really interested in just get something made and have fun and do films. So we have a great team at the studio, which all they love what they do, and we were able to make films at that budget. So today I'm going to talk about Månelyst i Flåklypa, Mission to the Moon, which is our latest stop-motion film, which is part of a trilogy with these characters. And there were these characters, and this whole universe is made by a guy called Kjell Aukrust, which is a famous writer in Norway. And he made some fantastic books in the 50s and 60s with these characters. He's a great writer, but he's also a fantastic artist and makes great drawings. So this is one of his drawings of this hedgehog character. And this is some drawings of this magpie, the bird character. And he has a very inspiring some visuals that it just works great for animation. This is some of his, this is the inventor, some of his drawings for Reodor, the inventor. So of course, when we started out this project, we had done some stop motion before in commercials and things like that, but never done a feature film in stop motion. So for us, it was natural to start thinking about this as a computer animated film. So we started out thinking about it as a traditional CGI film, but going more and more into his beautiful artwork and the details in his drawings, we realized that it's impossible to do this in CGI well. We need something that can represent these drawings better than CGI. Look at this this rack, hi-fi rack over there, for example. We put that in our movie right out of these drawings. So looking for techniques, we started to think about stop motion, and But this has not been done in Norway in many years, to do a feature stop motion film. There was no way where we could go and talk to people about, you know, we want to do a stop motion film, can we just set up the crew and get started? There was maybe 3 or 4 people in Norway that was doing stop motion. With a live action film, at least you could easily find a crew. There was no technology or knowledge about this at all. So we really started on scratch when we were doing these 3 films on how to really move forward. And we went on a little tour around Europe to talk to other studios and to talk to people. And we gathered together a crew with people from all over the world, but also with Norwegian base to do these films. And we had no idea how hard it would be to make a stop motion feature, or 2 or 3 or 4. It's really, I think it's the most difficult technique. I mean, it's so much working against you when you do a stop motion film, because it's, of course, I knew it a little bit from doing some commercials and stuff, but that shooting a stop motion film in a year, and then they let you know that you can't have almost no camera moves, because it takes so much time to set up the camera, to set it up. It takes a day just to plan the move, and then you have to shoot it single frame to get a smooth movement on the characters. It's like super expensive with every camera move. You know, these things I was not aware of, that it would be that hard. And especially doing the storyboard, planning everything, you know, all these camera moves were very fast axed down by the production managers, and naturally. So maybe it's a technique that allows you to do maybe 10% camera moves, and then of course characters walking, 2 characters walking, very expensive, very difficult. So rather shoot them like this, don't see the legs, you know, these kind of rules that start to pop up. But you soon realize that that's not the important stuff, right? You can do a nice film with those boundaries. So we started to design our characters. These are very early sketches of the magpie. He was in the books. He was a smoker, a heavy drinker. We had to tone that down a lot, especially the smoking. He's drinking a little bit in the films, but it's a bit unclear what he's drinking. Could be some apple juice or something. But the distributor said that cigarette has to, or the cigar has to go. So that went out the window. Early sketches of the Ludwig character, and also of this inventor character. And we started to set up the scales of everything, and which is another thing that, of course, surprised us a little bit. You know, the scales are very important because you're going to animate those puppets. So the smallest puppets that are going to be animated, they have to have enough technology inside them that you can actually animate them. So they can't be very, very small. They have to be a certain size, and the minimum size of a puppet is like 19-20 centimeters. And then from then on, you have like a human character, then will be like 30-35 centimeters. And what will that do to your sets? Well, the house would be like this, and then suddenly we realized we really need a lot of space to do this. You need like 1,000 square meters to shoot this film. So all these surprises that came to us along the way. So we started out modeling up the characters, actually using CGI in the beginning just to get the proportions right before we went into the real creation of the puppets. And then we started to make the puppets and make them in clay first to create a mold for the puppet makers. And we have some very good people at the studio that can do puppets. They love making puppets. That's what they kind of live for. But we didn't have enough of those people. So we had to have somebody that could give us 50 puppets within 7 months, 8 months time. And Then we had to contact other studios, and we contacted Pedri in, they are in Netherlands, and they are specialized in this, and they helped us out. So we designed everything and worked closely with them to create molds. So they made molds like this of the characters. We had to make them in some kind of silicon to make them last for a year, because the puppets easily get destroyed or dirty or get a bad surface. So so this was the surface that we went for. Doing very rough models first, just to get the proportions right. And then we went in and did the fine touches on it. What you don't also think of first is that these characters are going to be on the very, very big screen in the cinema. It's super, super big screens. And in close-ups. So it really has to work, all the details have to work in the close-up. And you have to work very fine with everything. So inside they have the puppets have some simple pedals that the animators can use. We couldn't afford like this very, very wild stuff inside, because then you had to have bigger heads and maybe even replacement heads and things like that. But we came up with this, and that gave us a lot of things to work with, and we could easily do some tests with this heads.
Jag tror detta blir bra, ja, Ludvig.
So we did some early tests, and we saw that this technique would work with this silicon and with those these things inside their heads. And then of course they need to be dressed up, and that's a chapter by itself. Again, back to the details of the puppets. You don't want the clothes to have too big details, because then it looks just off. It looks like if they had the stitches are too big, like in a regular sweater, you would see that it would look like a miniature. So there was a lot of science that went into how to knit a sweater with cocktail sticks and with a magnifying glass. But yeah, finally the puppets came through. I'll show you. I have brought some of the puppets I can show you. Here we are. Yeah, we can pass this around. This is this is what we call in Norway the Ludvig character. I think he has a different name here. And yeah, so he has this skeleton inside that is it's very robust. It can really hold for a long time. It should really hold like a full year of twisting and turning on this. They easily broke these limbs, so we also had a surgery department that kind of took care of that. But yeah, you can have a look, pass it around. And I have also the magpie here. So on this character, we wanted him to have very big eyes. And on this Ludvig character that is passed around here, you can see that his eyes are actual eyeballs that can move around. He has so big eyes that we couldn't actually have a real eye that we can move around. So we had to make the eye in silicon. So it's kind of part of the head, and it's the pupils that we move around to make him look around. And again, animating a character like that is not very easy, because he's very round and very kind of stocky. And being used to maybe 2D animation and CGI, it's not much he can do. He can't bend down to pick up anything, for example, because he's just too round and too stocky. So So again, we had to be very smart in every way to tell the story and to make close-ups and to make it work with these characters. Yeah. Then we have the sets. We did detailed artwork of all the sets before starting, of course, getting not only the tone and visuals of it, but also doing almost like architectural drawings of it and planning out everything. This is from the inside of the house. And in the film, there's this big rocket that's part of the story. I mean, we spent a lot of time just to design and come up with ideas and to find the correct design for the rocket. We have in most of the designs we could easily pick references from the books of Kjell Aukrust. He had made so many books and so many drawings, and there's even a Kjell Aukrust museum in Norway we could talk to, and they could send us originals, and it was all these different things. But when it came to the rockets, there was no. He never drew a rocket. He was very interested in the rocket race in the space race in the 60s. He wrote a lot about that, but he never drew a rocket. So we just had to, work out a lot of drawings before we came up with the one that felt right for this film, that had kind of his humor and his warmth and his. Usually his drawings and his inventions in his drawings are very unpractical. It's kind of a humor in those drawings. And Kjell Aukrust, he was a humorist. His stories were usually satirical. He was kind of mocking society, and he had kind of a role there. And every week he had new jokes in the newspaper when he was kind of like a what do you call it, a satirical drawing or jokes. So that's a very important element in these films, and a reason for me to wanting to make films based on his work is that side of him, that the film is not necessarily made for kids, not necessarily made for small kids. It's made for the families and for a grown-up audience. We didn't think about it to be kids' movies. We didn't plan that at all. It seemed that all the films worked for the family audience very well, because there's enough, fun and action in them. But the overall themes are kind of grown up and more for the older audience. And in this film, we are kind of mocking politicians that are forgetting about the little man. They want the government to shine. They want the state to look good, and they want to work for the state. But what about the people that live in the country? What about the little man? That's kind of the moral and the theme of this film. So back to the practical side of the films. So after we have done all the designs, we started to build every little thing, and now we really felt that yes, the technique is helping us. This really feels like a Kjell Aukrust film. The stop motion, the miniatures, the models, they're giving us that extra level of detail that CGI would never give us. The uneven lines, the uneven shapes. Yeah, there's the old telephone. And so everything we built was, nothing should be like straight. It should be all curved and uneven and a bit skew. Here's some sketches from inside the rocket, the cockpit department. with all the different buttons and things that they're using when they're driving towards the moon. And here's a work in progress of the model inside that rocket. And so there was a lot of work to get this rocket to work. Every little button here is animatable. We put in lights in this rig that we could control with the computer, so we could pre-plan blinking lights that we could pre-program, so the animator could just focus on animating and kind of start a blinking program inside the set that was pre-programmed. So these kind of little inventions helped us to make it really look really nice. Yeah, and then after everything was built, we moved into the studio, setting it all up. So we had this 1,000 square meters warehouse where we were working, and we divided it into 12 different units with Molton and cameras and light in each unit. And we need to have 12 because we had 10 animators going between these units in order to make this work. So there's a lot of work just to manage those 12 units. Yeah, I guess I can use this one. Yeah, so here's the set that you saw the drawing of. We're setting it up. Just putting it all together. So at this point, when we put everything together, we now had Pedri in Belgium working with the puppets, and we had sets given to us from a studio in England and from a studio in Poland. And we did a lot of props and sets ourselves at the studio. So it was a very, this collaboration of studios working together to get everything ready for the shoot, because there's a lot of work that goes into all these pre-planned elements. Also the rocket. This is the rocket building. And of course, again, we get these size issues because of the characters going to be able to walk in through the little door there. Suddenly the whole rocket is, the scale is really getting big. So we couldn't build a whole rocket. The whole rocket was impossible to build. So we built half of it like this and used that in all the shots where the rocket was kind of taking off from Earth and kind of landing on the moon. We could use this set, and then when we were doing shots in space, we had a smaller rocket that was a kind of a copy that was much smaller and that we can use for the space shots. There was again a big debate about doing the rocket that was going through space as a CGI rocket. We did tests, but it doesn't really look good. You really see the difference when you shoot, you jump, you cut from that rocket on the moon, and then suddenly you see this flying object. It just looks too slick and too perfect. So we decided to build it and shoot it against a green screen to get nice shots of it flying through space. And it really looks so much better than a CGI rocket. But it took a very long time to do it. I think we spent 2 months just shooting those space rocket shots. And we have a motion control rig that we could program and shoot around the rocket so it looks like it's flying around up in space there. And then we had to make the moon's surface. They're landing on the moon in the film. And that's not so easy either, because you don't, what does a moon surface look like? It's not that easy to recreate the moon like that. But what we found out was that it's not any atmosphere there, so the lighting has to be very hard on the moon shots to make it feel different than the shots on the Earth, and there's a lot of reflection from the ground that makes the shadows on the characters much less hard. And this created a very different feel on the moon shots than on the shots on the ground. Have you all seen the puppets? Are they going around? Have they disappeared? Are they? Yeah, there. Yeah, just keep them. Just pass them around. Yeah, I mean, so in the film, these two characters, Solen and Ludvig, that you have there, they go to the moon. They want to be the first Norwegians on the moon. That's the goal. And with them, they take with them a guy from the government, because he feels that he needs to be part of this, since it's the first rocket from Norway landing on the moon. But he has evil plans, because he wants to take minerals from the moon, and that's kind of Norwegian history, you know, to pump oil up of the sea, or to harness water energy. It's kind of a criticism of our own government, because we have a history of that. So this governmental guy, he wants to take minerals from the moon, and that's his kind of evil plan, and they have to stop him. That's kind of the story of the film, and the guy from the government just go crazy about this, and he's willing to let everybody die on this this big trip, because he wants his mission through, and he wants Norway to get richer on these minerals. Yep. So now I've talked a little bit about the pre-production and the building of sets. At the same time as all this have been going on, of course, we've been working a lot on the storyboards and the animatics. And during the course of all these films, I've learned that the animatic process has to be as long as possible, preferably like almost a year at least, to prepare everything. And on my first film, I did kind of a mistake of just doing the script. I just took the script and started storyboarding. Like, okay, now I'm starting storyboarding, which means I'm choosing angles and, you know, this is the way it should be shot. But learning, after doing that for half a year, finally storyboarded the whole film. The animatic was ready. We was ready to animate. And we saw the animatic for the first time, the whole thing, and you saw that it doesn't work. The film is horrible. The film doesn't work. And just going through that pain of changing all the storyboards and the animatics to make the film work while being in production was so I learned a lot from that. So so I've started to actually do 4 animatics in all the films. So, and this is because the animatics should also be part of the story development, I feel. The script is, okay, you have a good script, but your script is never shooting ready, even if you think it is. Especially in a feature film, it really needs testing. Maybe a short film, it's a bit different, or in a TV series, you can plan it better. If it's a 6-minute episode, you can maybe go straight into storyboarding. But doing a full feature that's going to have character arcs and emotional rides and everything, you really need to test your film. So we're starting to do it like this. We do the script with 3 storyboard artists sketching out the whole film for 6 weeks. They just run through it really fast, and it looks really bad, but we get the whole film drawn out in 6 weeks. And we put on sketch voices, sketch music, and just edit together everything really fast, and then we have a look at it together with the writer, with the producers, with everybody involved. And we usually rewrite as much as 40% of the script after that screening, because you so easily see now what doesn't work in your movie, because you feel it differently than when you read a script. And After we're done, after 6 weeks of storyboarding, we have a screening, we rewrite the thing, we go back into storyboarding again, doing an animatic 2, now with the real voices. And we screen that again after another 6 to 8 weeks, have a screening, look at it together again, the film starts working, but it's always still changes. It's always something that can be better in your story. So this is how we work with this with the storyboarding and with the editing. To really work with this until we feel that now it's working. And usually we also have a halfway through production screening with we have a lot of screenings, but like an official 6-7 months into production screening where we also see the film again. And usually there's still things to be done. Usually there's like still rewrites, extra lines that needs to go in, a total new edit that needs to be done. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing I've learned over the years is you never stop telling the story. You never stop developing the film. It's because the production crew, the crew around you will always ask, is the animatic locked? Is it ready now? Can we start shooting? And you have to say yes, it is. But at the same time, you have to be flexible with your timeline and with your edit, so the film can be better and better and better. So this is how our storyboards in animatic doesn't look that advanced, really. They are just line drawings like this. This is from a little action sequence inside the film. Just show you.
Yes, we can! Var jeg flink?
Den ikke ferdig.
Søk dekning! Bra fart i denne der, da.
Men den umulig å styre.
Uff da. Nå ikke jeg ekspert, dere, men skal ikke raketter gå oppover, da? Hva ble den da?
Jeg vet ikke. Jeg tror jeg går inn litt her, ja. Det høres ut som det gikk greit. Det trygt å komme ut nå?
So that's an outdoor toilet, which we have in cottages in Norway. We have these toilets. So this is very rough storyboards, of course, but the main point is just to get everything timed out, get movement in there, so you can time out your shots. So everything is super planned. We never afford to shoot extra handles or extra material, so it's important that the animatic is very, very tight. We usually deliver films that are exactly 75 minutes because that's the kind of the length that is that the people regard as a full feature film. Because then if you put on the credits at the end for 5 minutes, we get a film that is 81 minutes, and that's kind of the limit for. Well, that's what a film should be like. Okay, so the animatics. When the animatics are done, we of course move in with the photographer. And starting shooting, which is a very fun part, but of course also that's when the real stress sets in. We are setting it all up. It's Marcos, our Spanish animator. A lot of Spanish animators on our crew, actually. And working with their little, as you know, these little things that moves the eyes and working very delicately with the animation. We could Never produced more than, in the last film, never produced more than 2.5 seconds per animator per day. That was kind of the maximum or that was the goal, to produce 2.5 seconds of animation per animator per day. We tried to push it to more, but the complexity of the shots and the film made it impossible to do more than 2.5 seconds, sometimes less. And so we had these 12 units. We had 2 photographers running around from unit to unit, setting up the shots that were ready for the animators. And as a director, I have to go in and, of course, approve the whole setup, the framing before the animators come in. So a lot of running around and preparing, and the animators, the 10 animators, could then go directly from one shot to a new shot that was ready to a new shot that was ready, because we didn't have time to have any pauses or breaks and things like that. Some of our animators were shocked coming to our studio because they came from Leica or from those bigger studios in the States where they have like weeks off. You know, they're playing ping pong all day waiting for their shot because it takes so much time to set up. And that's why their films are, of course, also very costly. They're spending so much time on their framings and preparing those beautiful shots. So the animators are really, waiting for their time. But with us, we just had to go. So it was straight from one shot to the other one. And but I really enjoy this way of working, and especially coming from 2D and CGI, where you never have to kind of take a decision. You say try this or do a little bit of that, or there's always possibilities to change in 2D and CGI. Especially CGI, it kind of is like a nightmare. You can always go back and change. But here, learning to be very, very clear in the directions, I found was very hard, and very much learning in this for me, because I started out on the first feature. I started out talking a bit general about the scene, like about the mood and what should happen a little bit. But of course, the animator just wanted to know the character is sitting down, having a pause, looking over there, and all these very, very specific notes. And being forced to do that also helped me working with in other techniques later to be very, very specific and do a lot of reference material, film ourselves, and just work it out together so it's absolutely clear that what the animator is doing. And it was really, really helpful, because there's no room for reshoots. And you have, of course, what we call a cutback, where the animator can, if it's really, really something that doesn't work with the story, you can say, okay, can you jump in after 1 second and do the last part again? But of course, that costs a lot of money, and that's money we don't have. So, animation starts. This is Todor, our animator, working on a scene with 3 characters in it. Every time he shifts clothes there, it's new day. So, yeah, of course, these kind of shots with many characters is a lot of work. So we to do the walking, they are drilling the feet down into this surface. We don't use magnets or things like that. You have to really use your screws there and get the feet to the ground. And we also, of course, have all these things, what do you call it, to put on the characters if they're going to jump or walk or things like that. Here's one of the shots that was in the storyboard you just saw. This is when that little rocket has gone wild. And there's a shot of them trying to film that little rocket. And so this is one of those more expensive days where the camera is also moving. This is point of view the rocket coming towards them, and they have to jump out of the frame. And of course, 4 characters at the same time with the camera moving. It's a big challenge. So yeah, again, I learned a lot about cutting characters out of my storyboards and things like that. Here we are shot before comp. Whee! Okay, now we're on the moon. So you can see some scales here. This is, oh, didn't play that well. So this is the apparatus that this governmental guy starts using on the moon to suck up all the minerals that he's going to use and to make Norway rich. And it's quite a big apparatus, and you see the animator there. He had to use a lot of force just animating this huge thing, and to build it up, and because it was quite a heavy thing. And we wanted to shoot, of course, as much as possible in the camera, not do too much CGI. But of course, things like this, it's really heavy, and we have to do comp on it and animate the shadow there. Yeah, and of course, when something was broke, it had to go to the technicians. Another thing that was surprising for me was that all our planning was done totally analog. There was no computers involved. We gathered every day on these boards. So you see here the week, Monday, Tuesday, all the way here. And we had little cards for each shot with information about length, all the information you needed in those cards, and those were moved around every day, because a production like this is very, very flexible. It's almost, I'm so impressed of the people in charge of a production like this. They are the real heroes of a film like that, because suddenly the puppets are busy. We only have 4 of each of these. And if an animator is late, they can't go to the next set. And then we have to go to the board, switch around. So sets, puppets, props, all the time shifting around. So it's very important to meet every day at this board, all the whole supervisors, the whole crew, and everything was mapped out analog on these boards. Very, very helpful. Okay, then we move into comp. We knew we needed something we couldn't make in stop motion, and that was smoke. That was added later. Is the rocket taking off? So we shot everything in layers and added the smoke later. It was a lot of work just finding the style of the effects, so they don't look that wrong or too fancy in a way. We had to art direct them in a way that kind of works together with the rocket there. Can I play this? Was that the same? Yeah, it was. Yeah, the same thing here is the rocket on blue screen, and then we added effects and a background, and then we have a beautiful rocket in space. So the camera is doing the movement, the rocket is standing still, and then we shoot that against blue and add those effects later. Can I play it again? Okay, I'll show something more. Yeah, so he's got his spacesuit on now. A lot of the film, the characters had spacesuits and going into space like that. And there was no chance that we could actually have helmets on the characters, because the animators could not take on and off the helmet to animate the head. That was too time-consuming, and the helmet, if we did a glass helmet on set, they would reflect everything around. So after doing some tests, we found out that we actually have to do those helmets digital and add them later, and that added a lot of work for us after to add this kind of glassy texture on every shot when they had the spacesuits on. More here. Yeah, so we're back to this shot of Ludwig on the machine on the moon surface there. That's how it looks in the final film there. Yep. That's what I have about these films and about the film.